Hey guys, it's Steven. If you're getting chopped up in a flat, choppy market, today I'm going to show you a way to avoid that. I'm often focused on the power bar trade in my intraday trading. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to go into detail on it in this video, but there is a cheat sheet that I made that explains the trade and how it works. And you can comment power in the comments below and get that. But essentially what you're looking for is a power bar, which is a bar that's larger than the other bars around it, that starts at or near the 20, is moving in the direction of the 20 simple moving average, or if the 20 simple moving average is flat, it can be moving in either direction, and it needs to clear immediate support or resistance to the left, right? So that's the trade I'm going to use to show this. But this methodology, which I'm kind of stealing from ICT, I'm not an ICT trader, but a lot of the methodology is based on a sort of market maker mindset. And that's the background that I do come from. So I'm going to show you a simple way to avoid chop using some of the ICT methodology, but not the confusing terms. This is the cues on a 2-minute chart. I'm going to throw on my indicator for just a second, the power bar directional and the opening power bar. The directional gave two really good trades off the open today. And then the power bar at the open, which has been about 50-50 in October, gave a really good signal at the open here for a short. But after the market put in the high and the low here by 10:30, and the majority of the time the market will put in the high and the low for the day by that 10:30 time frame. It's only about 20-ish% of the time that we trend for the day and we move significantly out of that range. So one way, again, to avoid chop is to mark off a high and low that are put in the early part of the day. And here I'm going to mark it, this pivot high and this pivot low. And then once you've marked off that pivot high and pivot low, throw on a Fibonacci line. In TradingView, it's over here, Fibonacci Retracement. Put that on your chart, but only with, in settings here, only with the 0, the 0.5, and the 1 checked off, where you're going to uncheck all the other bars. And basically what that's going to do is just give you a very simple 50% line. And again, this is a shout out to ICT methodology for this 50% method in a range. So what you want to do once you've marked your range is take only long trades in the bottom half of the range and short trades in the top half of the range. So now what you basically said is, I'm going to trade the intraday range at this point. So now I'm looking for those power bars off the 20, but I've added a limiting factor. So the only power bars off the 20 I'm going to take are the power bars higher that develop in the bottom half of the range. This power bar, which develops at the 50% mark, ended up working as a trade, but to me, it's an okay trade, not a great trade. I want to see a long power bar, again, develop in the lower half, and this one starts to develop in the lower half, but it's just under that 50% mark. If I take this trade, what I'm expecting, and I'll show you what that trade looks like, I'm getting long here as I clear this resistance in this power bar, which is originating at the 20. And for this trade, I would have a stop basically here, right? So that's my risk. Because it's originating near that 50% mark, I'm not looking for a huge amount of profit in this trade. So I'm lowering my expectations for the trade. So my profit target is going to be basically the top of the range. The same thing happens later in the day, but this is a better trade, and I'll show you why. This is a short trade. You get a power bar. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little better. You get a power bar here that takes out support to the left. And look at where this power bar forms, right? It forms at the 20, which is what I'm looking for, but it's also in the top of the range where I want to be shorting. And this actually turned into, a pretty decent trade. 632, 70 down to 630, 170. So a point, and we actually rolled further than that down to at the low 631. So this was a decent trade, especially for futures traders or options traders. Obviously, it's not a great trade if you're just trading the actual Qs on the, a $632 ETF. But it's a good trade for, again, futures traders or options traders. And you can see that limiting factor of only taking this short here at the top of the range and near the 20 as it's flat to rolling over was a decent trade. And you can see a little bit later, there was another power bar trade here that formed off the 20 that basically cleared this resistance, right? The 20 went flat again, and you got this power bar. That's my entry on my power bar trade. But this is a trade I would not take if I'm trying to avoid chop, because look at where it's taking place, right? It's taking place in the upper part of my 50% range. So the only trades I'm going to take at this point until we break out of this range, either above it or below it, the only trades I'm taking in the upper half are short trades off the 20, and then the only trades to take again in the lower half are long trades off the 20. So that is one way to avoid chop when you're using a power bar strategy in particular, but it also avoids chop if you're using any other strategy, if you're using a VWAP strategy or basically anything else. Let me show you one other way if you actually have the indicator. Another way to avoid chop, if you have this power bar, and I'm going to take off the opening power bar strategy and just leave on the power bar. I had a question, how do I adjust the power bar SMA directional to avoid chop? And this is how I do it. It's set for 0.8 sensitivity. What the sensitivity measures is, as it says here, the minimum size that a candle's body must exceed to qualify as a power bar, right? And it's set relative to ATR. When I describe a power bar as larger than the bars around it, you have to tell the indicator in a little more concrete way exactly what a power bar is. So my indicator uses multiples of ATR to determine whether or not it is a power bar. So what happens when you get into chop is that the ATR goes from being, let's say it's 1. If you are in chop and your bars are very small and they're not going anywhere, that 1 ATR quickly drops off to 0.9 to 0.8 to 0.7. So what happens with an indicator like this is the sensitivity, even though it doesn't change, it actually becomes more sensitive because it's based on the ATR. If you're in chop and you recognize it, or if you are in a range like this and you can clearly see it, simply bump up the sensitivity And usually around 1.2, you'll see those buys disappear, right? So again, the default is 0.8, and you can see the buys and the shorts. Here are the longs, 3 longs here, a short, and a long. When you bump up the sensitivity to 1.2, you don't get any of the longs. You don't get this short. You don't get this long. You only get this short, which in this case happened to be the one that was good near the range top, and also was a larger power bar than these others when they fired off. So again, if you're using the indicator, that's how you adjust it in chop, is just bump up that sensitivity from 0.8 to 1.2. The indicator is being updated right now. So if you're watching this and saying, wow, that's pretty cool, I'd like to get that indicator because it seems to work pretty well, because the power bar trade works well. It's not for sale right now. This is November 3rd because it's being updated. It will be for sale again shortly. If you have already bought it, you know it's still working. It didn't come out of production to be updated, but right now it's being updated and should be for sale again shortly. So again, if you want the power bar strategy that I use, comment power in the comments below and I'll get you that for free. Use this 50% methodology to keep you out of trading in chop. Again, whether you're using a power bar setup to enter longs and shorts, or you're using some other method, this 50% methodology is there to keep you from trading in chop, no matter what your setup is. So thanks for watching. And if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll keep making simple setup videos like this. Thanks.